Hi, I'm Liz Thompson, 27 years old. Been married for 5 years with my husband James, who's 30. We have a little boy named Jack. He's 4. I used to work full-time, but now I'm part-time at the same job. James won me over with his determination, and that's how we ended up together. When James and I were dating, he was really sweet, but after we got married, he became controlling, like he thought he didn't need to make an effort anymore. He's super lenient with his younger sister, Jennifer, who's almost 20. Even though there's a big age gap, he spoils her rotten. Before we got married, I got along fine with her, but things changed. Jennifer started showing up at our place all the time, and James would drop everything to cater to her. It's like I'm just a roommate, and she's the queen of the castle. She never brings anything when she comes over and acts like it's totally normal to ignore me. As usual, James invites Jennifer to join us for dinner, even though it was just supposed to be the 3 of us. She accepts without hesitation, saying that's why she came. I quietly remind James that there's only enough food for 3, but he insists I give my portion to Jennifer since she's here. He even suggests I should always prepare extra in case she shows up unexpectedly. Jennifer apologizes to me, but it feels more like she's happy James is on her side. James scolds me for not being more accommodating to his sister. Feeling frustrated, I make something for myself and join them at the dining table. When Jennifer sees me, she asks James to have a private conversation, excluding me and my son from the table. This isn't the first time I've had to move Jack's meal elsewhere and eat separately. After they finish eating and I start cleaning up, I notice James and Jennifer chatting on the couch, leaving the dishes for me to clean. It feels like they see me as a maid, ignoring both me and my son. I sigh and begin cleaning up, getting ready to bathe Jack. As I approach them, James asked me to get a piece of strawberry sponge cake from the bakery downtown for Jennifer. It was nearly 8 p.m., and I knew it was time to bathe Jack and put him to bed. When I explained this, Jennifer complained to James, saying she really wanted the cake and that skipping Jack's bath for one day wouldn't hurt. James started getting angry, knowing the argument would persist until I agreed. Reluctantly, I agreed to go to the bakery. The bakery was about to close at 9 p.m., so I hurried to get ready, knowing I could make it in time. As I prepared, I overheard James and Jennifer talking loudly, criticizing me for being inflexible and questioning why James married me. Jack wanted to come along, so we decided to go together. As I stepped out, James shouted that we'd get a divorce if I defied him again. And Jack, though young, looked concerned. Trying to hold back my tears, I asked Jack what kind of cake he wanted. His eyes lit up as he said he wanted a cake with lots of apples. We chatted happily about cake on the way, momentarily forgetting the hurtful words. When we reached the cake shop, it was almost closing time. I bought 2 slices of strawberry sponge cake and 1 slice of the fruit-covered cake Jack wanted, though the options were limited. Back home, I served James and Jennifer their cake slices and put 1 for Jack on a plate, heading to the dining table. Jennifer remarked that Jack's cake looked better, and surprisingly, James swapped it with hers. When Jack protested, Jennifer ignored him and ate his cake. James justified it by saying he bought it with his money, dismissing Jack's right to choose. I was furious and confronted them, but James threatened divorce again. Jack stopped crying, but his worried look broke my heart. After a moment's thought, Jack began eating the strawberry shortcake that Jennifer was meant to have. "Mommy, this cake is delicious. I'm glad I got this one," he said, trying to mask his discomfort. It was distressing to see 3 adults subjecting a young child to such a situation. When Jennifer reached for Jack's cake, I quickly intervened, suggesting we eat in another room. I wanted Jack to enjoy his cake in peace. James protested, saying it was fine for Jennifer to have a bite, but I ignored him and took Jack to the other room. There, watching Jack savor his cake, I felt a sense of relief. Afterward, we bathed together, ignoring James and Jennifer, and cuddled up in Jack's bed. The next morning, Jennifer had already left when I woke up. As I prepared breakfast, I heard Jack crying and found his porcelain piggy bank. A gift from my father, broken with the money missing. Jack always said goodnight to it, as he did last night. I suspected James knew something about it. And when I asked, he admitted Jennifer broke it for money without remorse. As I comforted Jack, tears streamed down my face. It was heartbreaking to see James prioritize Jennifer over Jack's well-being. His callousness pierced me, and the mix of sadness and anger engulfed me. James, unmoved by our tears, complained about feeling gloomy in the morning, leaving me shattered. I couldn't hold back my frustration any longer and confronted James. Don't you see how wrong this is, making Jack cry like this? It was the first time I spoke out in anger. I never wanted Jack to witness marital discord, but I couldn't contain myself anymore. James didn't respond. Instead, he stormed off to the bedroom and returned with divorce papers, thrusting them at me. "If you're not happy with me, let's end it," he said before leaving for work. Jack had never cried over anything involving James and Jennifer before, but since last night, he had been inconsolable. I, too, had reached my breaking point. "Jack, let's take a break today and skip daycare, okay?" I suggested. Jack cheered, thrilled at the idea of spending the day with me. "Mommy's the daycare teacher today, right?" he said, his face beaming as he nestled on my lap, looking up at me with pure joy. I marveled at how much patience a young child like Jack must have. So we made a pact to spend the day playing to our heart's content, releasing all that bottled-up patience. I knew taking the day off work would be inconvenient, but I believed it was the best thing for Jack. After explaining the situation, I managed to get some time off. We spent the morning at the park, playing until we were exhausted, then returned home for lunch. Jack seemed unusually tired and cuddled up to me like a little baby, falling asleep on my lap. Normally, he naps on the couch alone, but today he wanted to be close to me. Instead of doing housework during his nap, I decided to cherish this special moment, finding solace in watching Jack sleep peacefully. Suddenly, I heard the front door unlock, much too early for my husband James to be returning. Instinctively, I grabbed a nearby bag and swiftly hid in the bedroom closet, holding Jack close. As I listened intently, I recognized the familiar voice of the intruder. It was Jennifer. She seemed to be searching for something, muttering in frustration. Why does she have a key? What is she looking for? I wondered anxiously. Peeking out from the closet, I observed Jennifer's movements and listened to her murmurs. After rummaging through various items, she made a phone call, expressing her inability to find whatever she was searching for. Mentioning bro, presumably James, she eventually left, locking the door behind her. The mystery of what Jennifer and James were seeking lingered in my mind. I carefully laid sleeping Jack on the bed and tried to make sense of what had transpired. Perhaps James and Jennifer were searching for something belonging to me, but I couldn't fathom what it could be. The whole situation left me feeling like James was a stranger, filling me with fear. Hastily, I packed Jack's things into the bag I had grabbed earlier. Just as I finished, Jack stirred awake. "Jack, let's go to Grandpa's house," I said, taking his sleepy hand. We hurried to the station and caught the train to my parents' home, just 2 stops away. Arriving unannounced, my parents were surprised to see us. Once Jack was home, he happily engaged with our family dog, bringing a sense of normalcy to the unexpected visit. As we discussed what had happened with my parents, I shared my feelings of fear and explained the situation. I speculated that Jennifer might have been searching for my banking card from my single days, and my parents agreed it was a possibility. You see, I used to run a successful online shop for handmade goods back then, which later expanded with the help of my friends in the same business. Even after getting married and having Jack, I continued to manage the business part-time from home, with my friends overseeing its day-to-day operations. Surprisingly, I hadn't told my husband that I'm still the president of the company, although he knows about my previous success in starting a business when I was single. I'm still employed at my company, but I've kept it hidden from my husband. He believes I've stepped down from my role as president and now work part-time. There's a reason for my secrecy. After we decided to marry, I learned he spends his entire salary with no savings. He expected me to quit and become a full-time homemaker, offering only $300 for groceries. I couldn't agree to this. After heated discussions, we compromised on me working part-time. But that wasn't all. He had me sign a legal document, limiting my claims to marital assets, making me feel financially trapped. Even after our child was born, I only received money for groceries, while I covered clothing and daycare expenses. My compliance may have led him to believe I still have savings from my single days, explaining why they're searching for my old banking card. Furthermore, I've been quietly saving for our child by diverting a portion of my salary to a separate account. It's clear they're after the banking card for financial reasons. There's no other reason for those siblings to be searching, but I'm cautious with my valuables, like my banking card, so even if Jennifer or my husband search, they won't find anything. The bigger issue is Jennifer having a key and unrestricted access to our home, a situation my husband seems fine with. My father suggested keeping my banking card at our family home, so I followed his advice and secured it in our family safe. However, he raised another concern. Why is he so desperate for money? While discussing this with my parents, Jack approached us tearfully, admitting he had broken the piggy bank from my father and failed to save money in it as promised. My father was furious, his face turning red with anger. My father was on the verge of calling my husband to express his anger when my mother intervened. Let's confirm if the banking card is their real objective, she advised. Acting hastily without evidence could backfire, especially considering my husband's casual mention of divorce. He might exploit the situation, painting us as the wrongdoers to gain leverage in a divorce. So we decided to record their conversation to uncover their true intentions and consulted our family lawyer, a longtime friend of my father. Once home, I began preparing dinner as my husband arrived. I discreetly started recording on my phone, placing it face down. As expected, his first question was about the banking card's whereabouts. When I pressed for his reason, he evaded the question, growing frustrated when met with silence. My sister's in trouble, so hand over all your part-time earnings, he demanded. I refused, explaining I was saving for our child. In response, he pulled out a signed divorce paper from his bag and thrust it at me. You can't even manage without me, yet you're arrogant. It's fine not to save for our child anymore, he sneered, implying his sister took precedence over Jack. Without another word, he left me stunned. I halted my dinner preparations, stashed the divorce papers in the bag I'd readied earlier at my parents' house, and took Jack's hand, heading for the front door. If you leave now, don't bother coming back. I mean it, my husband warned. I don't want to return to a house where Jennifer can come and go freely, he added. With that, I left the familiar confines of our home. My husband bombarded me with calls and emails, all of which I ignored as I made my way to my parents' house. There, I played the recorded conversation for my parents and showed them the divorce papers my husband had handed me. They asked what I wanted to do. I admitted I'd reached my limit of patience and love, but Jack's well-being was my primary concern. My parents suggested divorce might spare Jack further emotional harm, but they also acknowledged the potential for new wounds. Lost in contemplation, Jack mentioned he was hungry, prompting my mother to whip up his favorite meal, hamburgers. She had anticipated our arrival and stocked up on ingredients accordingly, ready for us to return home at any moment. Tears streamed down my cheeks uncontrollably. I couldn't contain them. Jack's delighted reaction to the hamburger was heartwarming. I wish Grandma could make these every day, he beamed, sharing his joy with my mother. That's because each bite is filled with love, she responded tenderly. Then, Jack fed me a piece, insisting it was filled with love and urging me not to cry. It was too much. I cried even harder, seeing Jack's concern for me. My father intervened, telling Jack these were tears of joy because I was so happy with his sweet gesture. He explained it gently, shielding Jack from any worry. Then my mother hugged Jack, moved by his innocence. I glanced at my father, noticing his struggle to hold back tears, his emotions mirroring mine. When I remarked on the beauty of family, Jack surprised me. Dad says his family is just Jennifer, but my family is Grandma and everyone else, he said, drawing a contrast. My father agreed, emphasizing our bond. Then, with a playful gesture, he asked if we wanted to be a family forever, lifting our spirits with his humor. Reflecting on our joyful meal, I realized it had been too long since we had relaxed together like this. It was a moment of clarity. I needed to proceed with the divorce. I explained my decision to Jack slowly, fearing his reaction. Surprisingly, he seemed relieved, finding solace in staying with the family. Even our older dog, back at my parents' house, received a warm embrace from Jack, who declared him his little brother. With clarity and determination, I knew what had to be done next. It was time to take action. The next day, I made arrangements to meet with my father's friend's lawyer to discuss my situation and finalize my decision to divorce. That night, Jack opted to sleep with my father and our faithful dog, Max. Meanwhile, I shared a bed with my mother, reminiscing about childhood stories until we both drifted off to sleep. The following morning, I reluctantly powered on my phone to find an overwhelming number of missed calls and emails from James, over 200 in total. His messages oscillated between harsh criticisms and desperate pleas for forgiveness, leaving me unsure of his true intentions. With a heavy heart, I decided to switch off my phone once more. In the afternoon, my lawyer arrived, and we delved into the details of my situation, reaffirming my resolve to proceed with the divorce. After thorough discussions, we officially signed the necessary paperwork, and my lawyer assured me he would meet with James the following day. 2 days later, the lawyer returned to my parents' house, and I eagerly inquired about the outcome. To my surprise, it transpired that Jennifer had a severe shopping addiction and frequented male strip clubs, borrowing a substantial sum of money from loan sharks with James as her guarantor. Their plan was to utilize my savings to repay the debt. When repayment was delayed, James confessed but expressed his desire for reconciliation, hoping for Jack and me to return. However, I remained steadfast in my decision to divorce, having already initiated the legal process. James, distraught, asked the lawyer if I could marry someone else. Despite his reluctance to let go, the lawyer affirmed my freedom to pursue future relationships. It was a difficult moment, witnessing James's emotional breakdown as he grappled with the reality of our impending divorce. He finalized the agreement by signing a promissory note to pay Jack $500 in child support each month. With that, the lawyer deemed the matter settled. Later, I received a call from my ex-husband. Our conversation brief but poignant. His once vibrant voice now sounded subdued, speaking with an air of calmness. It dawned on me that he may have believed financially binding me would deter me from seeking divorce, even if I grew to resent him. He confessed to always prioritizing Jennifer, his younger sister, out of a sense of brotherly duty ingrained since childhood. However, he now acknowledged this as a mistake, admitting his jealousy towards Jack, feeling as though I had been taken away from him, despite once loving our son. When he informed me that he and Jennifer had repaid her debts and expressed his intention to reconcile, pleading for me not to remarry, I firmly asserted that my love for him had faded, and there was no chance of reconciliation. Our conversation ended with tears exchanged over the phone as I wished him happiness before he hung up. In the aftermath, I leaned on my parents for support, making arrangements to transfer Jack to a different daycare while reviving my career as a businesswoman. Unable to keep silent any longer, I disclosed everything to my in-laws, who were outraged by the betrayal and resolved to disown James and Jennifer. Now they lived together in a modest apartment, their once close sibling bond deteriorating under the strain of their circumstances. As for me, I'd chosen to view their plight as a form of personal retribution. I've been saving up a lot lately. My name's Cassie, and I can't help but smirk at my phone with a sneaky laugh. I'm 29 now, married for 2 years, and working hard as a housewife. Some of my coworkers think my smirk is weird, but I can't stop because I'm so close to saving enough money to build my dream home. The balance in my bank account is almost there. my husband Max, and I don't have kids yet, but we've always planned to have some once we have our own home. I wanted to stay single a bit longer, but at 27, I fell in love with Max, who's a bit older than me. We work at the same company, but in different departments, which can be awkward, but I've stuck with it because finding a new job would mean less money. Now, after a lot of hard work, I'm almost ready to buy our dream home. It's been quite a journey. Life with my husband is smooth sailing, and our savings are growing steadily. We're content with our ordinary jobs and our plan to buy a simple home. Finding joy in this regular life is what makes me happiest. But there's one big hiccup: my relationship with my in-laws. It's the toughest part of being married. When I come home from work to our small rented apartment, seeing my in-laws' shoes at the door instantly drains me. They seem to be here again today. I let out a heavy sigh. I'm home. Oh, you're back. The one who responds isn't my husband Max, but my mother-in-law, comfortably seated on our cramped sofa. Good evening. Do you always come home this late? Our in-laws live just 3 train stops away, which is too close for comfort. That's why my mother-in-law often drops by without considering the inconvenience. You're home late again. What about Max's dinner? This happens too often. No sympathy for my long work hours, just complaints from my mother-in-law. I'm sorry, work was hectic. I'll cook something now. Max has been home for a while. Cassie, aren't you a bit inefficient? Even though Max and I work at the same company, our jobs are very different. Max rarely has overtime in his department, but he earns less. My department, however, is crucial to the company, often requiring me to work late. That's why I earn the highest salary in the company. I never bring this up myself, and I wish Max would, but maybe his pride gets in the way. He never speaks up. Right now, he's just quietly drinking his tea. Even though we both work, I feel like Max could pitch in a bit with the housework, but he steadfastly avoids it. Whether it's shopping, laundry, cleaning, preparing the bath, or cooking. When he gets home from work, he's either glued to the TV or absorbed in his phone. Oblivious to all this, my mother-in-law, as usual, came over to criticize me today. It's okay. I already had dinner with Max. Oh, you've eaten? We had some amazing sushi. I decided to treat Max to something nice for a change. I see. I was taken aback when I heard the name of the sushi restaurant. Isn't that an upscale place? Though surprised, since my mother-in-law footed the bill, I decided to let it slide and started heading to the kitchen to make my own dinner. But my mother-in-law stopped me. Cassie, I hate to ask, but could you do me a favor? I'm a bit short on cash this month. Could you lend me some? Just as I suspected, my mother-in-law often asks for money like this. I wanted to say, hold on a second. That doesn't seem right. You went to a fancy sushi restaurant, didn't you? And last month, you said you were struggling and begged for money. I reluctantly gave you $300, even though we're also tight on cash. And the month before that, and the one before that. Aren't you being a bit careless? But I held back and managed a strained smile. I'm sorry, we're all having a tough time this month. Can't you do anything for your struggling parents? You're the cold one, not me. Who's really cold here? Your son, who neglects his duties at home, leaves his wife alone, and goes out to eat sushi. Seems pretty cold to me. Finally, my husband Max chimed in. Cassie's mom is in a tough spot. Can't you lend her a hand? Oh, so we're really struggling this month, huh? Well, Mom, I'll help you out. Max sighed and pulled $500 from his wallet, handing it to his mother. Max is such a kind and wonderful son, unlike Cassie. I was stunned as my mother-in-law shot me a glare and headed for the door. I thought she was leaving, but then she turned back and glared at me again. Max, if you ever want to divorce your money-hungry wife, you're always welcome to come back home. I'll keep that in mind. With a slam, my mother-in-law left. What was that all about? I turned to Max, who was already lounging on the sofa with his phone. I confronted him. Why did you give her $500? If we have that much extra cash, why not put it towards our household expenses? I had my reasons for asking. While Max pays the rent for this apartment, that's the extent of his contributions. I cover all the bills like utilities, phone, groceries, and other expenses because Max refuses to chip in. What do you mean? I pay the rent, don't I? You expect more than just that. You're so greedy. That's Max's usual way of avoiding financial responsibility. I'm taking care of everything else, including the phone bill you're holding. It's understandable you earn more, but I only make a bit more than your salary. We're barely making ends meet with our expenses and savings. Oh, you have enough to save? Then you should be fine. Suddenly, he reached out his hand when I mentioned savings. What's this for? I gave my mom $500, and now I'm broke. Can you lend me some cash? What? Seriously? This is unbelievable. Despite keeping almost all of his salary except for rent, Max always claims he's short on money every month. He used to justify it by saying, "A man needs to socialize and entertain," and I reluctantly went along. But not today. Why should I foot the bill for you and your mom's sushi? Why am I responsible for that? It's a way to honor parents. What about me? Neither Max nor my mother-in-law ever show appreciation. It feels like I'm just a paycheck to them. And what was that about considering divorce? Exactly what it sounds like. If you keep being so tight-fisted, I might have to consider it. With that, Max locked himself in the bedroom. He even went as far as locking the bedroom door. In our tiny apartment, there aren't many places to go. With the bedroom inaccessible, my only option was to sleep on the sofa. These days, amid all the stress, the only solace I find is in checking my bank account balance. After enduring yet another round of sarcasm and financial demands from my mother-in-law, I'd open my phone before starting my overtime shift at work. Logging into my savings account, which I've had since I was single, I thought everything was on track for our dream home. That is, until I saw something that made me freeze. "What's going on?" I exclaimed, abruptly apologizing to my boss before rushing home. "Max, are you here?" "Oh, what's going on? You're home early today." Max looked surprised. Before him lay an assortment of what looked like expensive sushi, and he wasn't alone. "Welcome home, Cassie. We're just visiting." Both in-laws were present, not just my mother-in-law, but my father-in-law too. I couldn't help but wonder why they were here. "What's happening?" "We're having sushi." "Want some, Cassie?" "Sushi? Where did this come from?" "Oh, we had some extra cash," they replied. Pressing for more details, both Max and my in-laws seemed taken aback. I grabbed Max's collar, as if to keep him from escaping, and he reluctantly handed me something. It was the bank book for the account I had just checked online. Flipping it open, I was left speechless when I saw the transaction history. "What's going on? How did you withdraw this?" I demanded, my anger rising. "Well, I just guessed the PIN, and it worked. Lucky me, right?" Max replied casually, showing no remorse for taking out a large sum of money without my consent. I was furious and on the verge of exploding at Max for his nonchalant attitude. How dare you take my money without asking? The funds I had diligently saved since my single days had been withdrawn without my knowledge. Come on, we're married, aren't we? What's mine is yours. Don't be so uptight. This is the savings I've worked hard for since before we got married. Give it back. Relax, Cassie. What's yours is mine, naturally, Max said dismissively. Living off Max's support while secretly saving such a large amount of money. "You're so greedy," Max accused, his tone accusatory. "Yeah, exactly. You should appreciate me more. Who do you think you're depending on? It's unbelievable. I feel like I'm alone in this. Don't joke around. Taking my money like this is no different from theft. Give it back. Who's joking?" Max snapped, clearly startled by the accusation. Annoyed, he continued, "Don't forget, I'm the one paying the rent here. And I have plenty of social obligations to fulfill. Plus, I help my parents." "Right. Max is such a wonderful son. You leave the rent to me and secretly save all this money. It's easy for you. You only cover the rent. You hardly ever entertain. Yet you ask me for money while supporting your parents. Stop it. You married into this. It's only right for you to respect me and my parents. What's more, be grateful I haven't divorced you for being so useless, Max yelled, grabbing my hand and pushing me out the door. Hey, no sushi for you. Go cool off outside. I never expected to be kicked out. After standing there in shock for a while, I ended up spending the night in a business hotel. The next day, when I returned home, only Max was there. I was relieved the in-laws were gone. But then Max handed me a piece of paper. It was a mutual agreement statement, stating that if I didn't obey him, we would divorce. What's this? Listen, if you keep complaining, we're getting divorced. If you don't want that, just obey me silently. I'll take charge of the savings from now on, Max declared, flaunting the bank book. Then he got ready to leave. Where are you going? Out for a drink. What? Do you have a problem? Want a divorce? He taunted with a smirk and left. Such a foolish man. Did he really think threatening divorce would make me comply? My love for Max had completely vanished. Besides, did he seriously think there was still money left in the account he emptied? I had already withdrawn it all and moved it to another account. I felt uneasy keeping a large sum in one place, so I had multiple accounts. The bank book Max took was just one of them. I signed the paper without hesitation. Max's attempt at a threat didn't faze me. It was exactly what I desired. Quickly, I packed my belongings and left the house. I spent another night at a business hotel, and the following day, I took a day off work to file for divorce as soon as the city office opened. Then, I headed straight to a real estate agency. The previous night, while browsing on my phone at the hotel, I stumbled upon a property that caught my attention. A newly built detached family home near the station, perfect for commuting. It was almost love at first sight. The exterior and interior matched what I had envisioned. After viewing it, I made the decision to purchase the house on the spot. From then on, everything happened in a whirlwind. Staying in a business hotel until the move became too costly, so I explained my situation and stayed with a friend while getting ready for the new house. I had to start from scratch with furniture and other arrangements. Amid the whirlwind of activity, I completely forgot about my ex-husband and former in-laws. Hey, Cassie! Max's voice startled me one day when he showed up at my workplace. Oh, right, we work at the same company. As Max loudly called my name, drawing everyone's attention, he approached me without hesitation. Why haven't you been returning my calls? Oh, I didn't think they were important, I replied, remembering Max's persistent calls. I was preoccupied and didn't want the hassle, so I ignored them. You withdrew money from the account on your own, didn't you? Stop playing around. And why haven't you come back home? Do you really want to get divorced? It's fine, I replied nonchalantly. We're already divorced, and that money in the account is mine, so I can do as I please with it, I stated firmly. Max still seemed to view the word divorce as a threat. My casual response left him looking bewildered. What a silly expression. It's almost comical. What divorce? You mean you graciously offered it to me, and I graciously accepted, I remarked. What? I don't accept this, Max protested. Whether you accept it or not, the divorce is final. Oh, and I've already informed the company and completed all the necessary procedures. You might have some paperwork to handle, so make sure to report it to your boss, okay? With that, I redirected my attention to my computer. I'm busy. Where are you living now? You left your belongings at the house, Max inquired. I took what I needed. I'm comfortably settled in with new things I bought. Don't worry about me. And as for your whereabouts, that's none of your concern. This is a matter of privacy, so please refrain from prying any further, I replied firmly. With that, Max fell silent. Eventually, feeling the weight of the stares from my colleagues and boss, Max left the department without saying another word. Cassie's been through a lot. My colleagues sympathized. The comfort of my new home was unparalleled. The scent of a freshly built house was unforgettable. It was spacious and cozy. However, having just moved in, there were still many things I needed. Today, I was anticipating the delivery of some appliances I had ordered online. Then the intercom rang. Ah, it must be here, I thought as I went to open the door. I immediately regretted it. I cursed myself for not checking the intercom. Standing before me was Mother. Technically, my former mother-in-law, but the words slipped out in my surprise. There she stood, accompanied by my former father-in-law. And further back, Max was lingering. "Long time no see, Cassie. I'm coming in," Mother announced. "Wait, hold on," I protested, taken aback. My former mother-in-law barged into the house and began inspecting it as if assessing its value. "Oh, this property is quite nice. And this furniture is lovely. Move it to my room, will you? Oh, there's a basement too." "Excellent. Then this will be our room," she declared. Excuse me, but what's with these curtains? Dreadful taste. I'll choose new ones for you, so hand over the money," she continued. "The garden is quite spacious. Perhaps I'll start a vegetable garden." What were these people going on about? Confused, I turned to Max. "Max, what is?" "Be grateful, Cassie," Max interjected. I was about to confront them when my former mother-in-law cut in with irritation. I looked at her smug expression. "It's not much of a house, but as a gift for the parents, it's decent. If it's a two-family home, we'll move in. Of course, as the wife, you'll do the housework. We'll be generous and only ask for $1,000 a month for our allowance." What? What on earth is she saying? Are they from another planet? I couldn't comprehend and just tilted my head. "As the wife, I'm single now, you know," I added, surprising both my former mother-in-law and myself. "Max, you didn't tell them?" I questioned. "I don't accept it," Max shouted. But it didn't matter whether he accepted it or not. The divorce was final. We were complete strangers now. Upon hearing my declaration, my former mother-in-law's face paled. "What do you mean you're abandoning us?" "Your parents. My parents live in the countryside. I was planning to invite them over soon," she protested. "Don't joke around. This house is ours," she insisted. "No, it's mine," I retorted. What was she thinking? This house was purchased with my savings in my name. "Then where are we supposed to live?" she demanded. "I don't know. That's not my problem," I replied, feeling the weight of their expectations. Apparently, they had already sold their house, and the contract was finalized. They planned to live a comfortable life in this house, with the money from the sale and whatever they could extort from me. It was a frightening plan. "I don't accept this," my former mother-in-law continued to protest. "But it doesn't matter. We're strangers now, and this house is mine." "I won't accept it, absolutely not," I asserted firmly. In her anger, my former mother-in-law ripped the curtains. "Hey, what are you doing? These things I don't need, such bad taste. This is my house. I'll dim as I please," I snapped back. "That's right. What's yours is mine. Everything you own is mine," she insisted. "Listen, I don't accept this divorce, and both my parents and I are going to live here," Max shouted out. "Oh no, this is getting out of hand," I thought, just as I heard sirens. I had secretly called the police when Max and my former mother-in-law barged into the house. Finally, the police arrived. "What are you doing?" "We haven't done anything wrong," they protested. "That's right. If anyone should be taken, it's this woman," my former mother-in-law added. After a scene, they weren't arrested but were escorted away by the police. It had been a tumultuous day. After being released, Max continued to come by, insisting on reconciliation and getting picked up by the police each time. He even followed me to work. So after consulting with my boss, George, he received the stern warning. Misusing his wife's savings and assaulting her new home became the talk of the office, leading to an uncomfortable working environment for Max. His resignation seemed to affect him mentally, and he struggled to find new employment. My former in-laws, having sold their house, moved into the cheap apartment where Max and I had lived. It was an old, poorly maintained place, so it wouldn't have fetched much money. With the money from the sale, It seems like the three of them will be able to live modestly, finally free from all the drama. I'm relishing the comfort of my own home. Although I offered to have my parents from the countryside move in with me, they're not quite ready to make the move yet. So, for the time being, I'm enjoying the solitude of living alone. Perhaps I'll consider remarrying if the right person comes along, but for now, I'm content. One of the first things on my agenda is to get a dog, something I couldn't do while living in the apartment. I also have plans to try my hand at gardening and to host home parties with friends. As I gaze out the window at the blue sky, I think about all the things I couldn't do before and how I want to embrace and enjoy life from now on.
My name is Luda Okojima. I'm 29 and work for a big international company. I grew up in the United States until I was 18. My dad is Japanese and my mom is white. He's the boss at the company where I work. I learned 5 languages when I was very young, thanks to tutoring. Now I'm in charge of the company's operations in Japan, all thanks to my dad's support and the education he gave me. I followed my mom's beliefs and agreed to an arranged marriage. My husband, Akinari, is 6 years older than me. Love wasn't what brought us together. As we started living together, I noticed things that bothered him. The laundry needs washing. We only talk about basic stuff because of our situation. I've been swamped with work emails this week, sorry. That's not an excuse, Han. Lots of wives work and still manage their homes. He was firm about our roles. I work hard, but living together is new to me. I was doing my best to adapt. You're just standing there drinking coffee. How does that help? Drinking coffee helps me wake up and get ready for the day. It's my routine. Mind your own business. Akinari has always been like this since we got married. Maybe he doesn't really love me. He often reminds me that I was homeschooled, so I should be good at housework. Okay, yes, I can handle the housework. You knew that from the beginning. You're so focused on yourself, even though you didn't have a proper education. This household functions because of me. Remember that. We lived in a 4-bedroom house. It was Akinari's dream to own a home, so we took out a loan and got approved. It wasn't something I cared much about, but he made it seem like a manly achievement I wouldn't understand. We never really talked much about our jobs. Education isn't everything, I said simply. Are you testing me? You're belittling my education. According to you, the husband should be the main provider, and the wife should silently follow. Plus, you have a strong accent. People can barely understand you here. We're in Japan. He criticized me for everything. I grew up in the US, so my Japanese won't sound perfect. My mom helped me with pronunciation, but I speak 5 languages. I won't sound like a native Japanese because I'm not. He didn't know this, so he assumed I was unintelligent. I'm going to do the laundry. I'm off today, and Akinari will be leaving for work soon. He's a big germaphobe and always tells me you must bleach the toilet seat after every use. He washed me closely to ensure I cleaned everything after each use. When we moved in together, I used to wear shoes indoors, which is normal in America. Are you white or Japanese? Stop being gross like everyone in America. Take off your shoes, he snapped. In my mind, I thought, I am white. Half white. He was obsessed with cleanliness, always armed with hand sanitizer wipes and disinfectant. At home, he made me feel like I was the messiest person alive. Sorry for the germs, I'd say, wiping things down daily. Honestly, it got annoying. As I loaded the washer, I thought I heard him call, so I went to see what he needed. Did you call me? He snapped back. I did, but you took forever to come. You're just testing my patience. I couldn't hear you. I was doing laundry, and the machine is loud. I explained honestly. You couldn't hear over the washer? Are you deaf? You're pathetic. That's why people without degrees never achieve anything. My husband loved reminding me of my background. I couldn't finish my degree in the US because my father changed jobs. When we moved to Japan, I had to get a degree to work. I passed the entrance exam at a community college known for failures and dropouts. My husband graduated from the University of Tokyo. Coming from America, I didn't realize how prestigious that was until after we got married. But to me, a person's value goes beyond their degree. Is it really such a big deal that I graduated from a community college? What about all the other people in Japan who did too? Do you think less of them as well? I started questioning his values. What's the problem with being a community college graduate? There are many talented people in the world, no matter where they studied. In my company, there are even some who only finished high school, and they're doing great. I don't understand why he's so focused on appearances. In Japan, education is important, but doesn't everyone deserve respect regardless of their education level? I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Oh, so you went to the University of Tokyo, right? Isn't that like the top-notch education? The University of Tokyo? Ha, it's impressive. It's almost funny because you don't even grasp how amazing it is. I'm embarrassed I married someone not as smart as me. If it wasn't for our moms knowing each other, I wouldn't have gone through with this marriage. You don't deserve someone like me. He often talks about himself and points out what I lack compared to him. He enjoys making me feel inferior. In my opinion, people like him shouldn't be the most successful at their jobs. But strangely, his education seemed enough for him to succeed, even though I couldn't relate. I said, I get it. Someone like me doesn't deserve someone as smart as you. Whatever. Just listen to me. I went to the University of Tokyo, so I'll guide you. Just don't try to do things on your own. He's got a big ego and always wants to be in charge. I can't even slightly disagree with him because he always has to have the final word. Okay, time to head to work. Akinari grabbed his suitcase, leaving his coffee half finished, and dashed out the door. I glanced at the table and started tidying up. Isn't this table clean enough? I muttered to myself. 3 hours after he left for work, I got a call. Hello? What? With a subcontractor? Got it. I'll be there ASAP. My company informed me about a mistake found in an order with one of the subcontractors I oversee. They failed to deliver the materials we needed on time for our next project, which would now be delayed. To make matters worse, the materials are coming from overseas, adding extra time and cost. It was supposed to be my day off, but work couldn't wait. When I arrived, everyone was busy, and I immediately met with a team to assess the situation. I reviewed invoices and prioritized materials for the building starting construction soon. I managed a plan for the construction to start next week, but I knew the issue wasn't resolved yet. If the additional materials didn't arrive on time, it would affect future projects too. Normally, the subcontractor would handle such issues, but this time it fell on me. After a tiring day, I finally returned home from work, expecting a relaxing day off. I collapsed into bed and quickly fell asleep. Luda, I heard my name and stirred awake. I'm sorry, I must have dozed off, I said, though I wasn't truly apologetic. Still, Akinari was quick to judge. You're so privileged. You have a day off and can't even cook dinner for your husband. Instead, you sleep. He was already starting with the criticism, even though I had just woken up. I'm sorry, I had to go to work. There was an urgent situation. I explained, but he retorted, what kind of company calls its employees on their day off? I had a tough day too, you know. He always wanted his problems to take precedence. Perhaps he couldn't handle the idea of his wife being a better employee. It might have been his ego stemming from his prestigious alma mater, the University of Tokyo. Knowing his patterns by now, I tuned him out. Wait, it's 8 o'clock. I glanced at the clock and gasped. I've been asleep for 5 hours since I got home from work. The laundry I started this morning is still in the washer, and I haven't even made dinner. Suddenly, all the tasks I needed to do hit me at once. What are you waiting for? Make dinner first, then clean the tub. After that, do the laundry and the rest of the cleaning. There was a piece of your hair on the floor. It's filthy. His anger hadn't subsided, especially since I had fallen asleep. He never lifted a finger to help around the house since we got married, and he wasn't about to start now. He dictated my tasks and strolled into the living room. I hurried out of bed, washed my face, and started cooking dinner. Just as dinner was almost ready, Akinari's phone rang. It's me. It's happening again. Just stay quiet for now. Don't say a word. If they find out, we could be sued, and I'll bear the brunt of it. Be careful, he said, then abruptly ended the call. Who was that? Work? Did you mention something about being sued? Is there something going on? I already had a sense that something was going on after overhearing his conversation, but he refused to acknowledge it. Please just relax. It's not your concern. Besides, even if there was an issue, your small mind wouldn't be able to handle it, he retorted, hitting me with an unexpected insult. I seethed with anger but focused on getting through dinner without responding. I'm heading to the office, he suddenly declared, swiftly grabbing his phone and wallet. Before I could question him, he was out the door. I noticed he'd left his suitcase behind, and a file protruded from it. "What's this?" As I examined the file, labeled Okadera Mountain Resort Hotel Construction Plan Details, shock shot through me. I quickly snapped a photo with my phone as evidence before carefully returning everything to its place. By the time Ekaneri returned just before midnight, I was seething. I heard him announce his arrival and head toward the living room. "Welcome back," I greeted him. "I need dinner first," he demanded. I simply replied, "I didn't make any." "What? What did you say? You didn't cook?" He raised his voice. "Yes, I had something more important to attend to," I retorted. "You're making excuses again. How much incompetence can one tolerate? That's why I can't stand you, with your community college background." "I don't even care if we get a divorce at this point," he declared, his tone deadly serious. He was a staunch believer in patriarchal control, always insisting on having his way. I finally reached my breaking point and snapped back, "Fine, let's get a divorce." He was taken aback by my response. "Divorce? What?" he asked, bewildered. I pressed on, "You've been belittling me, making me feel unintelligent, but that's far from the truth." My words struck a nerve, leaving him puzzled. "What do you mean?" he questioned. "I haven't mentioned it because I don't care about school. But I actually attended Harvard University," I revealed. "Harvard? Do you even know what Harvard is?" His shock was evident. "Oh, didn't your mother tell you? I was born and raised in the US. I lived there until I was 18, I explained. "You? What? Are you serious?" Akinari looked pained. His ego took a hit. He had been proud of his degree from Japan's top university, but this revelation reminded him of even more prestigious institutions. "You're joking. There's no way I believe that," he scoffed, growing disrespectful. "Are you feeling offended? You seem to resort to inappropriate remarks when you're caught off guard. I guess the University of Tokyo isn't as prestigious as you thought," I said, surprised by my own assertiveness. "My feelings aren't hurt. I just need proof." "Show me the evidence," he insisted, needing tangible proof to believe my claim. So I showed him a photo from my freshman year orientation. "Can you read English?" "The sign clearly says Harvard Unit," I pointed out. "Don't mock me. I can read that," he retorted, scrutinizing the photo himself. "Do you believe me now? Why did you hide this from me?" "If I had known, I wouldn't have married you," he remarked, his ego clearly wounded. "Was it necessary to feel superior to your wife?" I challenged. "And no, my mom never mentioned it." "And what do you mean you didn't care? It's like you weren't interested in me at all," he deflected, playing the victim. "Isn't it wrong to judge people based on their education? Despite appearances, I can speak 5 languages: English, Japanese, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. How many can you speak? Being a University of Tokyo graduate, what does intelligence mean to you? What's so impressive about your alma mater?" I taunted, watching him squirm. 5 languages, really? Then why did you attend that community college? It's like you did it to deceive me, and don't even try. "My superiority stems from attending the University of Tokyo," he stubbornly asserted. Clearly, his alma mater held immense significance and prestige in his eyes. I pressed on, sensing his frustration. Judging people solely based on their educational background is narrow-minded. True value lies in someone's ability to excel regardless of where they studied. "That's why I hold a high position in my company," I stated, watching him struggle to process my words. Until now, he had always believed himself to be superior to me. It seemed this revelation shifted his perspective. "Never mind, I need to discuss something more urgent," I interjected, steering the conversation back to the main issue. While I knew it was leading towards discussing divorce plans, there was another matter I had to address first. Akinari was taken aback, wondering what else I had to say. Handing him the file I had found earlier, I demanded, "Explain what this is." Before he could respond, I continued, "This is the detailed plan for the Okadera Mountain Resort Hotel construction project. I know it's a significant project you're working on." "How did you?" he began, but I cut him off. "I saw it sticking out of your bag, so I looked. You went through my private work files? Do you realize how serious this is? If this information were to fall into the wrong hands," he started, his voice rising in alarm. "What are you afraid of? Being sued by my company and having the truth exposed? Is that what would happen if this ever got into the wrong hands?" I challenged. Akinari was left speechless, his eyes wide with shock. We've both been distant from each other. That document is a joint construction project agreement and contract between my company and yours. See where it says cooperating company and XS company. XS company is mine and I'm the vice president, I revealed with a smile. His mouth fell open, a bead of sweat trickling down his face. He began to panic and feigned examining the document. No, that can't be right. It must be a mistake from my assistant in the material order or something. Are you making excuses now? I didn't even mention the material order. We were investigating why we lost contact with your company and realized there was an error in the order. We plan to confirm it later, but your admission just confirmed it. I countered. He covered his mouth, perhaps trying to stop himself from saying more. It's too late now, he interjected sharply, and based on what I heard on the phone, it seems you're the one responsible for this mess. You can't even manage to place orders correctly or handle the construction schedule. It's clear that a University of Tokyo graduate doesn't live up to the hype. Or do you still believe you're so brilliant? He continued, cutting me off before I could respond. Why does my wife's company have to outshine mine? How is this even possible? This is absurd. I'm intelligent and capable because of my University of Tokyo degree. You know what? He lamented to himself. In response, I calmly stated, well, I've never considered you particularly bright. Oh, please. The sight of his expression makes me nauseous. As the vice president and head of this project, I'm halting all transactions with your company and seeking damages for this project. Additionally, I'll be filing for divorce. I informed him of the 3 actions I intended to take. Please, anything but that, my usually disrespectful husband begged, his palms pressed together. What do you mean anything but that? You mean all 3 actions. All of them. My entire life will crumble at once, he pleaded. Yes, all of them. It seems it's not just one issue now, is it? I couldn't help but chuckle at his incompetence. This time, as he watched me laugh at him, he felt a deep sense of shame. I no longer wish to be associated with such incompetence, whether as a couple or a company. It's time to let go and preserve what dignity you have left, I advised him. At that moment, he seemed to realize he had run out of options. Desperately, he clung to my leg, perhaps in a last-ditch effort to save himself. Please don't leave me. Don't leave me, the once confident man now sounded desperate, resembling a child being punished by being kicked out of his parents' home. Ignoring his pleas, I made a phone call instead. Hi, President. I'll explain the details later, but I've identified the person responsible for the project mishap. Yes, I'll ensure damages are claimed properly. Okay, bye. After hanging up, he slowly released my leg and stared at the floor. Exhausted, I decided to head to bed without a word, leaving him behind. The next morning, my husband was nowhere to be found. Before heading to work, I stopped by the courthouse to obtain divorce paperwork, which I kept in my purse. I planned to have him sign the papers after work. Upon arriving at the office, I encountered a commotion at the entrance. Akinari was amidst a group of men, engaged in a heated dispute. I'm terribly sorry, the president apologized upon seeing me approach. They've been causing a disturbance for the past 30 minutes, so I decided to call the police. Shortly after, the police arrived and intervened. Amidst the chaos, I couldn't make out what was being said. After giving them a stern warning, the police dispersed the group and they left. That evening, Akinari returned home with a defeated air about him. Without a word, he silently signed the papers I presented. Never subject yourself to such humiliation again, I admonished, but he seemed to be lost in his own world, broken and detached. Ensuring he completed all the paperwork correctly, I gathered my belongings and left without another word, opting to stay in a hotel until I found a new place. The following day, I filed the necessary paperwork to finalize the divorce. Our marriage had lacked love from the start, so I felt neither sadness nor stress over its dissolution. Life continued as usual, and 2 weeks later, I learned that my ex-husband's company had declared bankruptcy. Despite paying the damages to my company, they couldn't sustain future projects due to financial constraints. Consequently, my ex-husband, the project leader, faced legal action from the company, as my boss informed me. Ironically, my ex-husband's emphasis on education as a measure of competence had backfired. His downfall underscored the truth that academic credentials alone don't guarantee success. While Japan values higher education, once in a company, Everyone is on equal footing. Success depends on resourcefulness and intentions, not just academic prowess. With this realization, I reaffirmed my belief that a person's educational background isn't paramount. Instead, dedication and determination are what truly matter. Armed with this perspective, I vowed to continue my journey with unwavering dedication, confident that success would follow. Hey everyone, I'm Camila, and I want to tell you about my life. I grew up without a lot of money, but my husband Jackson had a totally different childhood. His family was rich, and he even started his own successful business. I have a good job too, but I still feel connected to my middle-class background. The only problem is my mother-in-law Addison. Dealing with Addison was like trying to navigate through a storm. But Jackson's dad, Grayson, was great. Addison, though, enjoyed putting me down and making me feel small about my family's money situation. She criticized us in private and even in public. Jackson always had my back, but Addison's insults never stopped. It got so bad that I thought about leaving Jackson because I didn't want to deal with his family anymore. But Jackson's love and support kept me going. He was amazing, unlike his mom. With time, I got better at handling Addison's behavior. So when she showed up with a flashy wedding dress right after we booked the venue, it didn't surprise me. She proudly showed off the dress, asking us what we thought. Isn't it amazing? It's from that fancy bridal shop you guys couldn't afford with your wedding budget, she said, not hiding her dislike. When I mentioned that her dress was too fancy for the occasion, she glared at me, clearly upset. I felt really uncomfortable then, not knowing how to handle her extravagant behavior, especially since Jackson and I were planning a simple wedding with just 60 guests to save money. We didn't want to spend too much, so I found a simple wedding dress that fit our budget. But Addison's dress was way too flashy. It was so extravagant that it would definitely steal the spotlight from me at my own wedding. It was obvious she picked it on purpose, knowing it would make a big statement. When I gently suggested she wear something else, Addison got really mad. How dare you tell me what to wear? I spent $125,000 on this dress. Do you really think I'd waste that money? I'm wearing it, no questions asked. Jackson tried to step in, saying, Mom, listen to Camila. That dress isn't right for our small wedding. Please pick something more suitable. But Addison wouldn't change her mind. No way, Jackson. I love this dress. I'm not settling for some random dress like your wife. I have my own standards. It's my big day too as the mother of the groom, she insisted, ignoring how ridiculous she sounded. Jackson, surprised, argued back, Addison, it's not your big day. Stop trying to steal all the attention. You're not wearing that dress to our wedding. The argument got intense quickly. Addison refused to give up on the dress, leading to a heated exchange between her, Jackson, and Grayson. The tension got so bad that we had to leave early without resolving the issue. Jackson was frustrated, saying, I can't believe my mom would do this. She's being unreasonable. Maybe she shouldn't even come to the wedding. But kicking Addison out of the wedding could make things worse. If we disinvite her, she might make an even bigger scene. She doesn't keep promises, and she does whatever she wants. We need to think of a smarter solution, I suggested, thinking about what might happen if we excluded her from such an important day. Jackson was frustrated too, admitting how badly his mother had treated my family and me over the years. I'm tired of her insults and disrespect. It has to stop. She can't ruin our wedding. So we agreed. We needed a plan that would keep Addison from causing trouble without making her suspicious or angry. As time passed, Addison stuck to her decision, leaving us to plan carefully to keep our wedding focused on our love, not her showing off. We all agreed that we needed a smart plan to handle the situation. So Jackson, Grayson, and I got together to figure it out. We were tired of her disruptions and all wanted to make sure she didn't take over our wedding. After talking it through, we came up with a plan and quietly started putting it into action, making sure Addison didn't catch on. We stopped talking to her about the dress and only gave her basic information about the wedding, which didn't bother her much since she was too busy trying to outshine me. Just a few days before the wedding, we were having dinner at my in-laws, and Addison couldn't contain her excitement. I can't wait for your wedding, Jackson. I've been thinking about it for so long. My dress and jewelry are all ready to shine. It's going to be such a special day, she said, clearly thrilled, though it was obvious she was most excited about showing herself off. It will be special, especially because I'll be marrying Camila. Jackson responded subtly, trying to bring the focus back to us, the real reason for the celebration. But Addison quickly made it about herself again. Sure, Camila will look nice. But next to me in my expensive dress, I doubt it. I spent a lot to make sure I stand out. Hearing this, I couldn't help but admire Addison's boldness, insisting she was better and planning to steal the spotlight from the bride on her big day. Jackson complimented Addison's dress to keep things calm, while I silently appreciated his support, squeezing his hand under the table. Grayson, always the wise and calming presence, played a crucial role in our plan. He gently teased Addison, pointing out how strange it was for her to make such big plans for a wedding that wasn't hers. Addison, you're really going all out for a wedding that's not even yours. Shouldn't we focus on the couple getting married? His remarks subtly reminded everyone of the real reason for the celebration, steering the conversation away from Addison's self-centered plans without causing more trouble. This clever move was an important part of our strategy to handle the situation gracefully, making sure the wedding stayed a happy occasion for us and our guests, not just a platform for Addison's ego. As the wedding drew near, Addison insisted on having only the best makeup artist for herself. For my son's big day, I need top-notch treatment. After all, I'm the mother of the groom, she declared. She was determined not to mingle with guests she felt were beneath her, especially while wearing her expensive jewelry, fearing it might get stolen by those unfamiliar with such luxury. Grayson had a clever idea. Why not get ready at home? It's safer and more comfortable, especially with all your plans, he suggested. Addison loved the idea of making a grand entrance and praised Grayson's thoughtfulness, unaware of our hidden agenda. Grayson exchanged a knowing look with us, showing that our plan was going smoothly. Caught up in her own excitement, Addison didn't realize she was falling into our trap. The thought of her surprise on the wedding day brought quiet satisfaction to Jackson and me. Even though I wish I could see her reaction in person, knowing the plan was in motion allowed me to focus on the joy of the upcoming wedding, feeling a sense of relief. While there was a slight worry about the plan being discovered, Jackson and our supportive friends helped ease those concerns. Everything was organized perfectly, reigniting my excitement for the special day. After months of stress, I felt genuinely thrilled about our wedding for the first time in a while. It was shaping up to be a celebration of our love, free from any outside drama. As the wedding morning arrived, bright and beautiful, it felt like the start of a new chapter we had been eagerly waiting for. The weather was perfect, adding to the joy of the day. Grayson, my amazing father-in-law, was the first to arrive at the venue, well before the rest of us. He stopped by to check on me, and despite my nerves, he'd assured me that everything was going according to plan. Don't worry, dear, he reassured me, explaining his early arrival was due to Addison's difficult behavior. Her makeup artist won't be here for another hour. We have plenty of time. I felt immensely grateful for Grayson's support. Thank you so much, Grayson. I can't express how much this means to me, I told him. He smiled warmly, reminding me that I was now part of the family and assuring me that the day would unfold just as we had envisioned. His presence was a comfort, especially considering the challenge of dealing with Addison as my mother-in-law. I felt fortunate to have Grayson by my side. After checking in on me, Grayson made his way to where Jackson and I were getting ready for the ceremony. The day was shaping up to be everything I had ever dreamed of. I'll always remember the look of love on Jackson's face as I walked towards him, escorted by my uncle. Both of us were overcome with emotion, surrounded by our closest friends and family, with Grayson's supportive presence adding to the moment. As for Addison, her grand entrance didn't go as planned. Dressed in her expensive gown and covered in diamonds, she expected all eyes to be on her. But when she arrived at the venue, she was in for a surprise. It was empty. Confused and a bit panicked, she called Jackson, her voice filled with disbelief. "Jackson, what's going on? Why is nobody here?" she asked, clearly caught off guard by the turn of events. Addison frantically searched for us at the venue, puzzled by the absence of familiar faces. Jackson broke the news. She wasn't at the right place because she hadn't been invited to the real wedding. Her confusion quickly turned to disbelief, eliciting laughter and amusement from our side. Even Grayson struggled to contain his laughter, finding the situation quite amusing. As Addison pressed for answers, insisting she was speaking with Jackson and not me, her confusion grew deeper. Jackson calmly explained that although the venue she was at had been booked initially, we had chosen a different location for our ceremony. Learning that the wedding had already happened without her left Addison in disbelief, questioning why she hadn't been informed earlier. Jackson, growing impatient, pointed out that her exclusion was intentional, a decision made to prevent the disruptions her presence might cause. Despite his explanation, Addison couldn't believe that her own son would go to such lengths to keep her from his wedding. The conversation heated up as Jackson confronted her about the unnecessary drama surrounding her dress and her attempts to steal the spotlight from the bride. His firm stance surprised Addison, who struggled to come to terms with the consequences of her actions. Jackson's firm assertion that the day belonged to him and his wife, not to his mother, marked a clear end to the dispute, highlighting the significance of the occasion for the couple over any individual's desire for attention. Jackson emphasized that he would no longer tolerate Addison's disruptive behavior, making it clear that the wedding day was about him and his wife, not anyone else. After delivering this message, he ended the call. Despite Addison's continued attempts to reach him and multiple calls to Grayson, we went on to celebrate our reception surrounded by loved ones, undisturbed by the unfolding drama. During a moment alone, I noticed a call from Addison on my phone. Preparing myself, I answered, only to be met with accusations and insults. She blamed me for her exclusion from the wedding, accusing me of manipulating her son and labeling me a gold digger, envious of her potential to outshine me on my own wedding day. I calmly refuted her claims with facts, explaining that Jackson makes his own decisions based on what he believes is right, and his choice to exclude her was his own, though I did not try to influence him. Undeterred, Addison threatened to crash the reception, claiming she was already outside. I brushed off her threats with a mix of disbelief and indifference, reassuring her that she would find no support here. Returning to the reception, I braced myself for whatever scene might unfold. As expected, Addison's attempt to enter the venue quickly escalated. Dressed in her extravagant gown and denied entry by security, she epitomized frustration and entitlement, her actions bordering on the absurd. Rather than garnering sympathy, this spectacle only reaffirmed our decision to keep her away from our celebration. The guests, aware of the situation, rallied behind us, leaving no room for Addison's theatrics to disrupt our special day. Her attempt to steal the spotlight didn't end in triumph, but in a public display of her own making, starkly contrasting with the joy and unity inside. The disturbance Addison caused outside the venue quickly caught the attention of our guests, prompting everyone to witness the source of the commotion. When Jackson came across his mother causing a scene, his frustration reached its peak. He confronted her, dismayed by her refusal to respect his wishes and her insistence on blaming his wife. "Mom, what are you doing here? I clearly told you that you weren't invited. Why can't you understand that?" Jackson's patience wore thin as Addison played the victim, accusing him of being manipulated by his wife, whom she labeled as jealous. "Mom, listen to yourself. My wife isn't the problem here. It's you trying to overshadow her with that extravagant dress and jewelry. You knew she had a modest budget. Your actions were meant to belittle her," Jackson argued, hoping to make her realize the selfishness of her behavior. Addison, seeking support, turned to Grayson, hoping he would defend her actions. But Grayson, equally shocked by her behavior, stood by Jackson. "That dress isn't just any dress, Addison. It's practically a wedding gown. How can you not see how inappropriate your actions are? Look around, no one agrees with you," Grayson pointed out, his disappointment clear. Addison's attempt to justify her choice by insulting Camila's family and guests only made the situation worse. "They don't get it because they're from a different background," she argued, clinging to her misguided beliefs about maintaining her supposed class. But Grayson had had enough. "That's it, Addison. I won't let you insult my daughter-in-law and her family any longer. You've crossed the line this time," he declared, standing firm against her unfounded accusations and sense of entitlement. The conflict highlighted the sharp contrast between Addison's self-centeredness and the united front presented by Jackson, Grayson, and the supportive guests. Her attempt to crash the wedding, instead of gaining sympathy, only reinforced her isolation and confirmed the wisdom of excluding her from the ceremony. Grayson's firm defense of my family was a powerful moment for me, showing the depth of support and love I had found within Jackson's family, despite Addison's disruptive presence. This act of solidarity, affirming me as part of the family, was deeply touching, bringing me close to tears. It strengthened my belief that choosing to align my life with Jackson and his family, separate from Addison, was one of the best decisions I had ever made. Shocked and angry at Grayson's rebuke, Addison couldn't understand how her husband could speak against her, especially to defend what she saw as outsiders. She held tight to her beliefs of being superior, criticizing the wedding and our union. But Grayson's response was surprising and definitive. He expressed regret not for our wedding, but for his own with Addison, admitting their marriage was a mistake due to her unbearable behavior. Then he announced his intention to divorce her, leaving Addison speechless. Grayson wasn't alone in his decision. Jackson also cut ties with his mother, prioritizing the well-being of his wife and their future together over Addison's toxic influence. This decision showed a commitment to shield our new family from further turmoil. Addison was shocked and disbelieving. Her reliance on Grayson and Jackson for financial support had been a pillar of her extravagant lifestyle. Grayson's mention of divorce, along with the prenuptial agreements in place, meant Addison stood to lose not only her family but also the financial security she had taken for granted. Her lavish spending, highlighted by the purchase of the expensive dress, had been unsustainable on her own, relying instead on her husband's wealth. The news of impending divorce and our decision to cut ties with Addison marked a turning point for her. The consequences went beyond losing family connections to a harsh financial reality. Her once secure future, buoyed by wealth and status, now looked uncertain, with the protective clauses of prenuptial agreements leaving her with little to claim. This sudden change in circumstances served as a sobering reminder of the cost of her actions and attitudes, highlighting the transformative impact of Grayson and Jackson's decisions on our collective future. Jackson, Grayson, and I had discussed the situation thoroughly, recognizing the need to set boundaries to protect our new family. Grayson had been considering separation from Addison due to long-standing unhappiness, while Jackson and I were determined to shield our relationship from her toxic influence. Addison, taken aback by the realization that her actions had real consequences, had to face the fallout publicly. Her pleas for leniency, framed as an overreaction to a single dress incident, were met with firm rebuttals. It was evident to everyone, especially Jackson and Grayson, that her behavior went far beyond one incident. They pointed out her consistent mistreatment of me as the underlying problem, dismissing her claims of unfairness as baseless. In a last-ditch effort to gain sympathy, Addison turned to me with tears, pleading for forgiveness. She clung to me, painting herself as a remorseful victim of circumstances. Yet her plea lacked sincerity. It quickly turned sour as she resumed name-calling and accused me of tearing her family apart. Her abrupt shift from fake remorse to open hostility only reinforced our decision to distance ourselves from her. Her failure to offer a genuine apology or acknowledge the impact of her actions further alienated her, not just from me but from everyone present. The guests, initially watching quietly, grew increasingly disapproving as Addison's true colors emerged once more. This scene marked a significant moment for our family. It wasn't just about keeping Addison at arm's length. It was about reaffirming our commitment to respect, unity, and the well-being of our shared future. Addison's failed attempt to reconcile, quickly overshadowed by her return to blame and manipulation, only strengthened our determination. The way forward was evident, marked by a united stance against toxicity and a shared commitment to nurturing a supportive and loving environment free from past grievances. Jackson acted swiftly. Without allowing Addison a chance to argue, he instructed security to escort her out. Meanwhile, both sides of the family and our friends openly criticized her behavior. It was a moment of validation as we watched her being escorted away, allowing us to resume our celebration surrounded by genuine supporters. The very next day, Grayson took decisive action. He returned home only to inform Addison to leave their shared residence and had his lawyers serve her with divorce papers. Her attempts to sway Grayson with tears, screams, and threats in front of the lawyer were futile. When she attempted to approach us, seeking an ally or a way to disrupt our peace, we made a conscious choice not to engage, safeguarding our new life together from her drama. Our phones and social media became Addison-free zones, eliminating any avenue for her to reach out. As for Addison's outcome, it was swift and fair. The divorce left her in financial hardship, her attempts at manipulation proving futile. Her pleas for help went unanswered, forcing her to face the consequences of her actions alone. Eventually, she returned to her hometown, hoping to rebuild her life and reputation, seeking employment and a fresh start. These developments brought us profound relief and closure. With Addison's turbulent influence no longer present, our lives thrived. We hope she finds a path forward that keeps her away from us, allowing us to move on from this chapter without further discord.
Have you ever heard the saying, your thoughts shape your words, words turn into actions, actions become habits, habits define your character, and your character shapes your destiny? Simply put, what you think can decide where you end up in life. It might sound deep, but it's a straightforward concept. Your thoughts influence how you live. By the time you realize this, it could be too late. This is the story I want to share today. I'm Rebecca, 54 years old, working part-time as a homemaker. Married for 30 years, our 2 kids are grown, and my husband and I enjoy our days together as a couple. Retirement is approaching. I mentioned this over dinner to my husband, who's 3 years older than me and will retire in 3 years. He's been a banker for about 35 years since college. In the past, it was common to use the retirement bonus to pay off the mortgage and plan for post-retirement life. Paying off the mortgage at once with a lump sum was the norm. But times have changed. Oh, really? My husband explained that only a handful of companies offer retirement bonuses in the hundreds of thousands, and getting tens of thousands is considered good. Besides, there's the challenge of needing $200,000 for retirement, and more households prefer keeping as much cash as possible. I was quite intrigued by my husband's banker-like perspective. Regarding our house, what if we pay off a chunk to save on interest? We can then manage the remaining loan with our reduced living expenses. Fortunately, I can work as a contract employee even after retiring. It's comforting to have a financially savvy husband. You're reliable. I complimented him while pouring a glass of wine. One day, some unexpected guests arrived at our house. "Hey Rebecca, it's been a while," greeted my 6-year-old brother and his wife Annabelle. I must have made a face upon seeing them. They weren't pleasant people, but I kept my thoughts to myself. "Why are you here in the middle of the day on a weekday?" I inquired. Annabelle promptly replied, "Well, we just built a new house, and we thought of getting a congratulatory gift." A congratulatory gift? It felt rather impolite to come seeking gifts, and I'm sure many would agree. However, these individuals considered it normal, posing a problem. Reflecting on it, they've been money-focused since their marriage. Back when they got married, I was still in college, and my brother shamelessly said, "You're over 20 now, so you're an adult. Give us a gift, whether you're earning or not. Going to college as a woman is a waste. Use that tuition money for our gift instead." Even my parents were astonished by my brother's greed. I thought no one could be more greedy than him, but it turned out Annabelle was equally miserly. They talk about money all the time, even during Christmas and New Year's. "Rebecca, how much do you make? What's your husband's bonus? What assets does your family have? How much is your father getting in pension?" Annabelle inquired. There's a recent popular web service that analyzes people's brains just by entering their names, and I can imagine if they used it, the word money would dominate. Dealing with such vulgar and uncivilized people is something I only endure when necessary, and yet, here they are, expecting a congratulatory gift for their new house. Wait, a new house? I learned that my brother retired at 60 this year. Annabelle seems to be working part-time, but, well, this might sound odd. But did you secure a proper loan for your new house? When I inquired, my brother responded, "Loan? Not at all. I bought this house with my retirement money and the inheritance from her parents." It turns out my brother used his $80,000 retirement funds, $140,000 in savings, and his sister-in-law's parents' $250,000 inheritance to purchase a house. I've been in a rental for a long time, and I wanted to experience living in a house. A new house is definitely nice. Indeed, it's really nice. Much cleaner than this old house. It's barrier-free, and will be secure in our old age. However, I'm concerned about such a risky move. But you still have 5 years until you start receiving your pension. Don't you think it would be better to have some savings for your old age?" When I mentioned that, my sister-in-law shot me a contemptuous look. "You're such a worrywart. We've thought about those things." At that moment, my brother and his wife exchanged a creepy smile as they leaned in close to each other. What are they plotting? I discovered their scheme a month later. "Rebecca, your dad collapsed. I got that call from my mother during my lunch break at work. My father was perfectly fine when I spoke to him a week ago. Why did this happen?" I informed my workplace and immediately rushed to the hospital. Upon arrival, my husband was already there, offering comfort to my haggard and slouched-shouldered mother. "How's Dad doing?" I inquired, prompting my husband to explain that instead of my mother, my father had collapsed in the bathroom and was rushed unconscious to the hospital. He had been diagnosed with a subarachnoid hemorrhage, undergoing immediate surgery and still undergoing treatment. I see. Did you inform my brothers? Yes, I did, but they mentioned discussing the inheritance before visiting his bedside. So, rather than coming to the hospital, they chose to consult with a lawyer at the law firm. How money-focused can those insensitive couples be? My father is still alive, albeit in critical condition, with a chance of the worst outcome, but it seems inhumane to prioritize sorting out finances while he's still fighting. I'm at a loss for words. Even my mother wears a resigned expression towards their behavior. Honestly, I'm appalled. What kind of heartless individuals are they? The surgery on my father was successful. However, his elderly condition remained precarious, and making predictions seemed impossible. While my mother and I took turns visiting, my brother and his wife were nowhere to be found. Then, a week after the surgery, we received a call from the hospital. "Your father's condition has suddenly changed." My husband, mother, and I rushed to the hospital, only to find my brother and his wife surprisingly already there. "You arrived early," I commented to my brother, who oddly wore a cheerful expression. "Well, why would he look so happy when our parent is in critical condition?" The reason became apparent quickly. "Hey, what about your father's life insurance? Can you ask your mother about it?" My sister-in-law whispered audibly in the hushed hospital room. I shot her a glare, but she appeared genuinely puzzled, saying, "What's wrong?" That foolish expression of hers only fueled my anger. Then the doctor entered the room to check on my father. I believe today is the turning point. The doctor informed us with a serious expression, and my husband, mother, and I broke down in tears. Memories of my father flashed through my mind in an instant. My mother was in the same state, holding my father's hand and calling out to him with a tearful voice. "Oh, but we finally get it. Yeah, now our retirement is secure." I overheard my brother and his wife conversing as we mourned. They seemed eagerly anticipating my father's passing. I recalled what they had said earlier. Their focus was on their retirement, connecting it to my father's inheritance, the new house they built by depleting their savings, the matters with the law firm, and this callous statement. My mother seemed to grasp their intentions and shot a sudden look at my brother and his wife. They had a hyena-like appearance, fixated on their prey and eagerly awaiting its demise. People often say that when anger peaks, it transforms into an unusual calmness, and that proved true. My mother appeared to share the same sentiments, and after silently observing my brother and his wife, she suggested, "Let's step outside for a moment." We exited the hospital room and settled into a discussion in the hospital's lounge. "You two really have no idea," my mother stated with a mix of disbelief and perhaps pity as she looked at them. "What do you mean?" My sister-in-law noticed the shift in my mother's demeanor, her expression suddenly stiffening. My brother maintained a relaxed look, but I wondered if it was only a matter of time. My mother continued, "There's no inheritance for you two to claim." "What? What do you mean, Mom?" My brother's expression abruptly tensed. "There's nothing to inherit. The house and land we live on are in my name, and your father has no assets." Come to think of it, I've heard this before. My father was the type who didn't hoard money. He had a habit of spending all he had, and my mother handled all the household finances. The only money my father possessed was for his daily cigarette expenses. Aside from a vague understanding of money, he was a good husband and father. So my mother and father managed quite well together. In reality, my father had no significant assets, and if anything, he only had a few dollars for his cigarette expenses in the coin purse he always carried. But he has life insurance, right? Yes, but I am the beneficiary. It's none of your concern, my mother sharply replied. Your father is still alive, and this couple is only thinking about money, bringing up life insurance. As I was about to voice my frustration, my mother intervened. Firstly, your father is not someone who would succumb to something like this. He stayed calm during a motorcycle accident, when caught in an avalanche while skiing, and even when he was ill. He has overcome cancer and liver cirrhosis with sheer willpower. If you're concerned about inheritance, shouldn't you be more focused on your own spouse than your stepfather? My mother chuckled while addressing my sister-in-law, and my brother was the one expressing his frustration. Mom, I'm still alive. Don't talk about inheritance. It's inappropriate. It's rude. Their annoyance was likely because they couldn't inherit anything. However, it's the same for you. You're saying the same thing to your father now. Do you realize that? You're being disrespectful and uncivilized. My mother's words left them speechless, forcing them to remain silent. And there was no inheritance to claim. They stood there stunned. What should we do? We built a house and bought a car because we expected an inheritance. How will we sustain ourselves from next month? Last month, we went on a shopping spree using credit, and we still have outstanding loans for the air conditioner and refrigerator we purchased when we moved. My husband and I observed these 60-year-olds panicking due to a lack of funds. I quietly suggested, firstly, it's wrong to rely on money that you're not even sure of receiving. You lack proper planning skills. The two of them seemed too drained to argue with me. Then my brother proposed, let's sell a house. It's the only solution. While it sounded like a sensible idea, my sister-in-law vehemently opposed it. No, that house is my sanctuary. I won't sell it. We've finally found a peaceful place to live, and I won't give it up because of this. Oh, if your father doesn't have an inheritance, why not consider sharing your mother's inheritance? Yes, let's do that. It's a good idea, my sister-in-law suggested, approaching my mother. I'm still alive. My mother's response was so comical that I nearly burst out laughing, but I had to hold it in. My brother looked at me. Help me out here. I could almost hear his plea in his expression. At that moment, my husband, a banker, chimed in. Why not consult a financial planner? If you have no income and no savings, you're in a hopeless situation. Selling the house seems appropriate. Fortunately, there's no mortgage, so selling it can bring in some cash for you to live on. Selling the house is the only way to escape this predicament. However, my sister-in-law remained adamant. We won't sell the house. Absolutely not. If that's your stance, then contribute to our living expenses. After all, you're siblings, right? This time, she redirected her attention to us, but my husband skillfully sidestepped the request. It's not feasible. I only invest in ventures with assured returns. My husband's words, shaped by years in the loan department, carried weight. Even if there were potential returns, I wouldn't invest in such a couple. Amidst our discussion, the doctor called. Finally, the moment had arrived. I was mentally prepared for it. When my mother returned from the hospital room, she informed us, "It might not be good news for you. Your father has regained consciousness." She said this while casting a cold stare at my brother and his wife. My husband and I felt a wave of relief at my mother's words, and tears welled in our eyes. My brother and his wife, having realized they would not inherit anything, seemed indifferent to my father's condition. Yet perhaps they were attempting to maintain the facade of concerned children. "Dad, that's great. Yes, you're right." They uttered these insincere words. As my husband and I entered the hospital room after my mother, my brother and his wife trailed behind with seemingly innocent faces. Just before they could enter, my mother halted them. "You two are excused. Your obsession with money sickens me. If you have the time to visit, contemplate your life from tomorrow onwards. She dismissed them like stray dogs and concluded with this remark: I'll leave you with this message. Thoughts become words. Words become actions. Actions become habits. Habits become character. And character becomes destiny. My brother and his wife were left stunned by my mother's unexpected speech. Huh? In essence, your thoughts ultimately shape your destiny. Unless you alter your thinking, your destiny remains unchanged. Reflect on this carefully. Consider how foolish, unsightly, and pitiable your actions are. With that, my mother firmly shut the door to the hospital room, signaling her determination to break ties with her son. Following that, my brother and his wife were compelled to sell their house. They had to part with their recently constructed home and land for less than a quarter of the $400,000 they initially paid, just 6 months after putting it on the market. This was due to the discovery that the ground in the area was quite unstable, causing land prices to plummet. Moreover, the surplus of houses for sale in the vicinity led to buyers offering very low prices. Despite their reluctance, they had no choice but to sell the house. The unemployed couple now has only a meager amount of cash to sustain them in their old age. It's likely that the funds will deplete before they begin receiving their pension in 5 years. My brother resorts to working as a day laborer for daily wages, while my sister-in-law takes on part-time work. It's a lamentable tale of individuals self-destructing by relying on their parents' inheritance. I hope they grasp the gravity of my mother's words. Surprisingly, there are many stories like this. When people become fixated on money, their judgment often falters. A previous customer of mine once remarked, "When my parents pass away, I'll use the inheritance to pay off my mortgage. So please arrange it for a 20-year term." Such cases are not uncommon. It appears that such situations are prevalent in the world. It's indeed a significant issue. Bankers, dealing with a diverse range of individuals, undoubtedly have a challenging job. There are countless untold stories due to confidentiality. Perhaps I should let my husband take over as the next storyteller. He might have even more fascinating tales to share. Just kidding. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until the next video.